Hello everyone, I'm Ian Castle from AussieVocalCoach.com and also 21st Century Music. Now this is the first video in my Ask Ian video series and our first question comes from John and he says, Ian, I think two aspects of singing that I'm sure many people would like you to cover would be stage presence and overcoming nerves. Okay, I have a lot of experience in this. I've been playing piano for over 30 years and singing for over 20. So that makes me quite qualified to give a strong definitive answer that's helped me during my time as a performer. We need to talk about nerves first, as stage presence is affected by your physical and mental state. So if you're being affected by nerves, it's going to affect how you deliver your performance on a stage. Now, nerves aren't actually all that bad as a performer. You can actually use your nerves to give your performance that extra energy that you need. Now, if you aren't feeling anything before you go on a stage, that's a really bad thing, because if you're not feeling anything, you're not going to be able to give anything to your audience. So what are the signs that you're nervous? What are the physical symptoms? You're going to have an increased breathing rate. Your heart's going to be pumping out of your chest. And you're also probably going to start getting the dreaded shakes, which is not a great thing if you're holding a microphone and your hand and microphone starts to shake. So the worst thing that you can do is just to stand still and let all those nerves just control you. What you want to do, you don't want to be static, you want to be moving. So before you go on stage, just bounce around, go with it, shake out those nerves, bounce up and down, anything to stop you from just being consumed by nerves. Now, if your heart rate and breathing rate is way too high, just take a moment and just take some deep breaths, okay? Because deep breathing in particular can slow your heart rate and also your breathing rate. Those things can help a lot if you're nervous or anxious about going on stage. But the absolute best thing that you can do, which is almost a cure, is to make your performance less about you and more about your audience. You need to give your audience as much of you as you possibly can, okay? Now, the vast majority of people who are watching you aren't going to be there to judge you. They're going to be there to listen and to support you. So don't go on stage thinking that you absolutely have to be perfect. If you're not, you're going to be judged and criticized, because that's actually not the case. You need to forget about trying to be perfect. There is not one singer in the world who is absolutely perfect every time that they perform. The audience may think that they are, but I guarantee you everyone who comes off stage has one thing that they think, oh, I wish I had done that better, or I practiced that so much better. Forget about perfection and allow yourself the freedom to actually make mistakes. Now, as long as you're emotionally connecting with your audience, they'll pretty much forgive you for anything. Now, this actually happened to me quite recently. I hosted 2 benefit concerts to raise money for a sick mum. And myself, my students, and some of my professional singing friends performed for these concerts. Now, we're in winter here in Australia, and quite a few of us are sick, myself included, although I'm getting better now. But 2 of my students had to pull out for health reasons. So I stepped in at the last moment to fill that little bit of a hole in one of the concerts. Now, at the time, I was still suffering from a bit of a sinus infection and coughing quite frequently. So my head voice notes probably weren't at their best. Now, I got to the end of the song. The song is Hallelujah. And I usually go into a nice, pure head voice sound right at the end. And as I attempted to do that, nothing came out. I went, Hallelujah. And I tried again. Hallelujah. Still no head voice. Hallelujah. I tried 3 times to hit this note live in a concert performance. And at the end of the day, I just played it again. Hallelujah. And then as soon as I finished that note, I just kind of burst out laughing. And the audience laughed as well. And then they clapped and cheered, and it was fine. Now, after that concert, not one person came up to me and said, wow, what happened there at the end? Your voice didn't come out right. no one said that. Everyone was full of smiles and had a great time at the concert and was full of praise for everything that myself and my students and my friends had done. So you might think that a small mistake on stage is the end of the world, but if you're connecting with your audience, they'll forgive you. They'll still love you. Another thing which can drastically help your nerves is how prepared you are for that performance. Now, practice does indeed make almost perfect. You need to practice in situations which put you slightly out of your comfort zone. If you're used to just singing with your coach in your lesson or by yourself at home with a backing track, and the very next thing that you do is you step on stage in front of 200 people, yeah, you're going to be nervous because you are not going to know what to expect. Your body and your mind will just basically freak out. So what you can do is sort of take baby steps. Start performing in front of people that, it kind of matters to you how they're going to react, okay? So family, friends, even total strangers. Just put yourself in that situation where you're performing for people, and then when you get to that stage where you're performing for lots of people, it won't be as scary because you'll still be performing, most likely, for friends, family, and strangers. Now, performance anxiety is different to nerves. Okay, if you're anxious about your performance, that's a pretty big deal. Okay, because that leads to breakdowns a lot of the time. Post and pre-performance. Now, I have a student. I'm not going to name who this student is, but she had a really bad experience a couple of years ago where she basically forgot every word on stage. She wasn't my student at the time, but she did tell me this story, and she basically just lost it. She could not finish the song. It was a complete disaster for her. And for a couple of years, she would not step on stage. She would not sing in front of anyone. Now that is some serious mental scarring from a bad experience on stage. To combat the anxiety that my student was feeling, even at the very thought of performing, what I did was I offered to perform with her on stage, playing the piano and doing some backup singing so that she wasn't alone. Now, the worst thing that you can do is get up on stage with a backing track if you're anxious, okay? I'm so against backing tracks for just about every situation. There are some situations where you have to use them, but I'm all for live performance. Having someone up there playing the piano, playing a guitar, having a band behind you to perform with, it's such a big deal for someone who is anxious or nervous because you can draw upon that other person's strength. Okay, now I'm very used to performing on stage. I'm very comfortable up there. I get excited, I don't get nervous. Excitement is, it's on the other end of the scale of nerves, okay? So having me on stage with this student, it gave her like a rock, okay? A familiar rock that she could feel safe with. She got through the performance, which was so amazing for her, considering she hadn't been able to do that for 2 years. So if you are suffering from performance anxiety, you need to find a way to feel safe and have some type of familiarity on stage with you. And that's going to make all the difference. Okay, so now we've talked about nerves. We can now move on to stage presence. Commanding a stage and an audience's attention comes down to confidence. Firstly, you need confidence in your vocal ability. So if you've put in the work with your vocal training, with your vocal coach, or whatever vocal programs you're using, that's going to give you a confidence that what you do in practice is going to happen on stage. Now, if you're not practicing, improving your voice in your own time and then jump up on stage, you're not going to have the confidence to perform for your audience because you're just going to be worried about if the notes are going to come out or not. You also have to have confidence in yourself. Now, there's a certain level of arrogance needed to be a really high level performer. You have to believe that you are amazing. and that there's no one else on earth at that moment that is better than you at what you are doing. But you have to do it in a way which is giving to your audience. Don't hold back. Everything on a stage needs to be amplified. You need to be bigger physically on a stage, otherwise it's going to swallow you. All your movement needs to be strong and dynamic. So when you walk onto a stage, keep your chest proud and your head held high. And if you're like this, you're going to just be swallowed, okay? You need to be larger than life. And remember that your physicality directly influences your mentality. Now, there isn't a confidence button that you can just push. It does take time. It does take practice. I can tell you from my many years of experience as a performer and as a coach, and going from a shy, introverted guy to someone who can step on stage and command attention in front of hundreds and sometimes thousands of people, that the biggest weapon that you have as a performer is how much of yourself you are willing to give your audience when you perform. That is the key. You need to make your performance less about you and more about them. Performing and singing is a way for us to connect emotionally with people. So when you step out onto that stage, smile at them, look them in the eye, and have a bit of fun. And absolutely the most important thing, give as much as you can, and your audience will love you for it. Now, I hope that helps you with your nerves and stage presence problems. I've been doing this for over 30 years, so I'm not just making this stuff up. It's all drawn from my own experience, stepping out on stage and learning how to combat anxiety and learning how to become a performer who can command a stage. So I hope it helps you, and I will see you next time for another Ask Ian video. Okay, bye. Now, the way we combated this anxiety was to create stability and familiarity.